A lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is putting on its shoes. That quip about the velocity of misinformation is widely pinned on Mark Twain. Yes, bullshit has always traveled fast, even 150 years before the internet came along. But here's the kicker. In all likelihood, Twain never said that. If you're familiar with how such things spread online, you'll recognize that alongside Lincoln, Gandhi, and Einstein, Mark Twain sits atop the Mount Rushmore of misquotation. Now, to be fair, it sounds like vintage Twain, but variations of that aphorism predate the scribe from Hannibal, Missouri by at least a century. Scholarly consensus points towards the Anglo-Irish satirist Jonathan Swift. That also tracks. It has the ring of Swiftian wit. Regardless of its precise birth, over on this side of the Atlantic, that homespun wisdom adopted a famous patron, a literary son of the American South. And the irony circle is complete. The origin story of a pithy quote about how misinformation spreads is itself a perfect object lesson in, how misinformation spreads. Because a good story, especially one that resonates with our hopes, our fears, or what we wish the world was like, has undeniable power. We're sorely tempted to repeat narratives that feel right, that should be true, whether they line up with the facts or not. The truth might still be lacing its boots, but that untrue but tempting fiction is already halfway to legend. It has always been thus. Long before we carried digital omniscience around in our pockets, urban myths and strange rumors moved fast, moved like phantoms. Ghost stories around the campfires, whispers on the front porch, drunken arguments in late-night bars, broadcast through static, copied until blurred. Each retelling smooths out and rounds off the sharp corners of the truth. True or not hardly seems to be the point. Such stories are elemental. They shape identity and carry cultural weight. Today, we'll discuss a musical saga that confronts the power of myth and teases out the complicated truth about a Southern rock giant. That saga is Drive-By Truckers' 2001 album, Southern Rock Opera.
Skynyrd was set to play Huntsville, Alabama, spring of '77. I had a ticket, but it got canceled.
This podcast is intended to be education and commentary. It will discuss adult themes and may use coarse language. Pantheon Podcasts presents Rock and Roll Archaeology with host Christian Swain. Music, culture, technology, and rock and roll. And now, on with the show.
Hey friends, Christian Swain here. Yeah, that's me, and I am the rock and roll archaeologist. All right, the whole team, writer dude Richard Evans, sound guy Jerry Danielsen, and yours truly, we all welcome you back for another RNRA short right here on Pantheon Media. These shorts are little side trips. We're fond of movies and TV, so if there's a rock and roll angle, we'll take that on, or dig deeper into something we brought up in the main episode, or maybe we'll just shine a light on something we think is interesting. If there's a tie-in with music, culture, and technology, well, we are up for it. So make a suggestion. Best place to do that is probably on the Patreon page. All right, here comes the business. It's all happening at rockandrollarchaeology.com. Links to Patreon, RT Public Store, social media, all the different feeds, everything is all right there. Patreon supporters do get early and an ad-free version of our newest releases. Subscription plans start at just one little old $1 a month, gang. That is all. Think about that. $1 and you get all of this rock and roll goodness. Shout out out to our central research partners at rocksbackpages.com, the ultimate music journalism archive. We also want to give a warm shout out to Andrew Craneman, author of the Rock and Roll Almanac. Andrew sent us a review copy. It's a great resource, and so, gets the old thumbs up from us. You can find the Rock and Roll Almanac by Andrew Craneman on Amazon Books. All right, that's the business. Let's pause to pay some bills, and we'll come back with the setup. Today's short definitely ties in with our most recent main show, Chapter 27, Southbound. We brought it up, and now we want to dig a little deeper into Drive-By Truckers' 2001 release, Southern Rock Opera. This ambitious double album provides very astute and rockin' commentary on some of the themes we explored in Southbound. It drills deep into what the truckers call the duality of the Southern thing. And it's a great rock album, a career highlight for one of the best American rock bands of the 21st century. By the way, the Truckers are out on the road this summer, and tickets don't cost an arm and a leg, maybe just a finger or two. A quick show note. This discussion will reference the 2024 reissue of Southern Rock Opera. The newer version is pared down a little from the original, 18 songs rather than 20. In our view, it's a bit tighter and overall a better presentation. Okay, so let's get into it. Time for another rock and roll archaeology short. This one's called Southern Rock Opera, Ghosts, Myths, and Monsters. When Drive-By Truckers delivered Southern Rock Opera in 2001, it didn't just materialize out of the red Alabama clay. This was already a band with history. The core partnership, Patterson Hood and Mike Cooley, college roommates making music together since the 80s, hailing from the Shoals area of North Alabama. Patterson's father is David Hood, bassist for the legendary Swampers. Muscle Shoals royalty. But this wasn't some vanity project or some guys coasting on daddy's connections. This was sweat equity. Years grinding it out in shitty clubs, honing that Drive-By Truckers sound, raw and visceral, but also thoughtful and literate, defiantly Southern. The SRO concept actually predates the Drive-By Truckers. It started as a screenplay idea. Patterson Hood and original bassist Earl Hicks talked about it one night on a long drive. They wanted to weave tales of growing up Southern with the potent mythology of Lynyrd Skynyrd's rise and tragic fall. They even cooked up a name for their fictional band that would stand in for Skynyrd, Betamax Guillotine. That was a nod to a gruesome urban legend surrounding Ronnie Van Zant's death. The story goes, the fatal blow wasn't the crash itself, but rather the plane's onboard Betamax video cassette recorder. Kids, this was the 1970s. VCRs were the new tech. Supposedly, upon impact, the Betamax came loose and became a projectile flying across the cabin and clocking poor Ronnie right in the head. The reality, of course, is straightforward and sad. Ronnie was in the forward section of an aircraft that hit the ground at high speed, and you just don't need any other explanations than that. The Betamax Guillotine was pure rock and roll folklore, exactly the kind of myth the truckers were about to dissect. Now, over time, the truckers realized, hey, we're songwriters and not filmmakers. We'll make a record, a big, ambitious album that unfolds as a two-act narrative. Here's where we're going to lean on Patterson Hood's commentary from DBT's official website. By the way, we love it when bands have detailed, informative sites with lots of content, so tip of the cap to the truckers for that. Act 1 is titled after the fictional band, the aforementioned Betamax Guillotine. It's a gritty mosaic telling tales of growing up in the 1970s Deep South. Teenage restlessness, cheap beer and dirt weeds, small-town speed traps, shotgun weddings, yearning for escape through rock and roll.
And me, I was one of them pussy boys, 'cause I hated football. So I got a guitar, but a guitar is a poor substitute for a football with the girls in my high school. So my band hit the road, and we didn't play no Skynyrd either. I came of age rebelling against the music in my high school parking lot.
Too much of a pussy for football, lonely and horny, dreaming of rock and roll glory, suffocating in a small town, carrying with every step the duality of the Southern thing. Act 2 is called The Ballad of Lynyrd Skynyrd. The tone shifts to a more direct, though still impressionistic, telling of the Lynyrd Skynyrd story. Their rise from Jacksonville bar band to stadium headliners, the pressures that came with that, and the devastating plane crash that cut it all short. Act 2 also grapples with the aftermath, the mythologizing of Lynyrd Skynyrd, how their story became a Southern archetype. For a club-level band with just 2 modestly successful albums to their name, Southern rock opera was an audacious, high-stakes gamble, taking on the worst and the best of growing up as a Southern rock and roller.
Think I'm gonna call the police. I hear something upstairs. Not no good, well, there ain't nothing good going on up there. Probably 10 or more of them sitting all around, smoking that stuff and drinking that hard.
So the Truckers took a break from the road in the spring of 2001. Recording Southern rock opera got moved up to the front burner. And burner is the appropriate metaphor. SRO was recorded that summer in Birmingham during a sweltering, sticky Alabama heat wave. The Truckers worked upstairs in a converted uniform shop, no air conditioning. They had to turn off the fans while the tape was rolling. Patterson Hood recalls the album was fun to write, but we had a miserable time making it. Then they hit a wall. No money left to actually release it. So they pulled another audacious move, put out a call to the faithful. Invest in your favorite band. And their fans came through. The Truckers scraped together about $20,000 via word of mouth and their own early version of online fundraising. Enough to print 5,000 copies and keep the dream alive. Southern rock opera first saw daylight on September 12, 2001. Yeah, dropped right into that weird raw aftermath of 9/11. No slick rollout, no chart debut, but the work spoke for itself, and several high-profile critics took notice. Our favorite New York grouch, Robert Christgau, was an early champion of the Truckers. He gave the new album high marks, putting it on his best-of list at the year's end. A grassroots buzz started growing. That slow burn led to a wider reissue on Lost Highway Records in the spring of 2002, getting this ambitious, challenging work to the broader audience it deserved. It was the sound of a Southern band grabbing Southern history by the throat, shoving it up against a wall, and demanding a reckoning.
Proud of the glory, stand down the shame, duality of the Southern thing.
That's a piece of the third song on side 1, The Southern Thing. Patterson Hood calls it the Rosetta Stone for Southern rock opera, the mission statement, the central argument of the entire epic. This line right here is probably the money shot. Proud of the glory, stare down the shame, duality of the Southern Thing. Southern rock opera is a guitar-fueled unpacking of that loaded, defiant phrase. Mike Cooley wrote one song on the Truckers' debut album, Gangsta Billy, and contributed 2 songs to their sophomore release, Pizza Deliverance. Southern rock opera is a bunch of things, but very notably, it's where John Michael Cooley steps all the way out and becomes a co-equal songwriter to Patterson Hood. Starting here, he puts his own distinctive stamp on the DBT canon. Act 1 ends with Mike Cooley's mean, stark, and darkly comedic Zip City, an instant classic and a fan favorite. At live shows, it's usually the big showstopper near the end of the set, and it gets him every time.
Your daddy was mad as hell. He's mad at me and you when he tied that chain to the front of my car and pulled me out of that ditch that I slid into. Don't know what his problem is. Why he keeps sending me away, don't know why I put up with his shit when you don't put out in Zip City so far away.
not just the fans. Patterson Hood calls Zip City his favorite track on the album, possibly his favorite DBT song ever. Yeah, high praise from the band's co-founder. So, Act 1 is world building, sketching out the small town landscape and introducing its angsty, angry inhabitants. Act 2, the Ballad of Lynyrd Skynyrd, takes us into the legend, the Skynyrd saga itself. It's clear these guys admire Lynyrd Skynyrd, but this is not hero worship. The truckers tell it raw and unfiltered. Skynyrd's hard-scrabble Jacksonville origins, breaking through and breaking out, pushed along by Ronnie Van Zant's temperamental, sometimes ruthless leadership. Lynyrd Skynyrd becomes a symbol, a legend. For some, probably for most Skynyrd fans, they came to represent a defiant Southern spirit. But for the truckers, it's something more complicated, something that raises questions. How does a rock band become a canvas for everyone else's dreams, their hopes and fears, their shortcomings, and their decencies? And what is the human cost of all that myth-making? Like any good epic, Southern rock opera builds momentum in the final act, hurtling faster and faster towards tragedy. Songs like Road Cases, Life in the Factory, and Shut Up and Get on the Plane mix exhaustion and exhilaration. All the while, the story picks up speed, closing it out, the inevitable, Angels in Fuselage, a haunting, surreal immersion in 3/4 time that recounts the final, terrifying moments. Scared shitless of what's coming next. These angels I see in the trees are waiting for me. The final moments and the void left behind. Right here. This is where Act 2 forces the real confrontation, not just with grief and loss, but with how that tragedy fed the legend. These flesh and blood musicians, in an instant, became something else. Symbols, icons, an enduring but widely oversimplified Southern myth. The complexities of who they were became secondary to what their story represented. This distillation of messy, contradictory life into a simple but potent narrative, this is where the monster of our title, the power of a story to shape belief and memory, takes hold and refuses to let go. Southern rock opera was a critical triumph, but it didn't clock multi-platinum sales numbers. Nonetheless, SRO has done just fine over the years, more than enough to move drive-by truckers from a regional act to headliners with a large national following. The 2024 reissue and tour did very well, both critically and commercially. Right in the wake of SRO's wider release in 2002, a new ingredient was added to the already potent mix. A prodigiously talented songwriter and guitarist named Jason Isbell, just 22 at the time, joined up as the newest trucker. This kicked off what many fans and critics consider a golden era for drive-by truckers, with Isbell adding his own distinct voice and strong songwriting. The truckers hit an incredible creative stride. Albums like 2003's Decoration Day and 2004's The Dirty South followed. One of our little criteria here, way we assess great bands at RNRA, is the 3-album run. Great acts all seem to have that sweet spot in their career where they put out a string of at least 3 really fine albums in a row. Late 60s Beatles, early 70s Rolling Stones, mid-70s Stevie Wonder, you get the picture. We would argue that Southern Rock Opera, Decoration Day, and The Dirty South comprise that killer 3-album run for Drive-By Truckers. It's an impressive body of work. Each release is packed with character-driven rock narratives from 3 distinct yet complementary songwriters, eclectic and full of surprises. Country, blues, straight-ahead rock, and punk elements are all mixed in. Following an amicable break with the Truckers in 2007, Jason Isbell went to form the Excellent 400 unit. Multiple hit albums, platinum sales numbers, 7 Grammys along the way. We think he's one of the finest songwriters working today, and we're not alone in that assessment. Jason still occasionally shows up to sit in at Trucker shows, and vice versa. So, almost 25 years on now, what's the enduring legacy of Drive-By Truckers and Southern Rock Opera? Well, for starters, critics and fans alike have consistently praised their potent blend of rock and roll fury, country grit, and deep blues sensibilities. Beyond the sound, their unflinching lyrics and novelistic storytelling truly sets them apart. They don't just write songs, they build worlds and populate them with flawed, fascinating characters. They are deeply influential in both the alt-country and modern rock scenes. Their honesty and their willingness to tackle tough subjects have informed and inspired a generation of musicians. Today, Drive-By Truckers are more than just a popular band. They've become, almost in spite of themselves, a respected American institution. The band acknowledged this with their typical mordant wit. In 2010, they put out a greatest hit collection titled Ugly Buildings, Whores, and Politicians. That's a nod to a real Mark Twain quote. Politicians, old buildings, and prostitutes become respectable with age. There's Mark Twain again, and that brings us all the way back around full circle to the opening discussion. At the start, we mentioned Drive-By Truckers are back out on the road this summer, still challenging their listeners, still supported by one of the most fiercely dedicated fan bases in rock. They continue to prove that rock and roll can be smart, literate, and speak truth to power, and they do it with 3 guitars ablazing. In Patterson Hood's own words, telling stories of a forgotten South, stories no one else was bothering to tell, stories that own up to the terrible while telling of the beautiful. I'm Christian Swain, and this has been Rock and Roll Archaeology on Pantheon Media. Keep up the rockin'. Yeah, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Can you hear that singing? Sounds like gold. Maybe I can only hear it in my head. 15 years ago they owned me.
Rock and Roll Archaeology is written by Richard Evans and Christian Swain. Produced and hosted by Christian Swain. All sound design and incidental music by Jerry Danielsen at Busy Signal Studios. Find all of our shows, notes, and links at pantheonpodcast.com. All songs can be found for purchase or streaming wherever you get your great music. Please pick up these amazing tracks. Contact us on social at Pantheon Podcasts on Facebook and Instagram. Tweet us at Pantheon Pods.